What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All NBA Show, part of the All City Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Mares. Tim Legler is having a load management day here as he travels to cover the Spurs and Oklahoma City game tomorrow on ESPN. So we brought in the next best thing, a new two-man game partner for me. He is the host of Hoops Tonight on the Volume Network. It's Jason Timpf. Jason, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Tim Legler's a legend. It's some big shoes to fill, but any opportunity I get to hang out with you and talk basketball, I'm stoked about. And so much interesting stuff to get into to start the season. And your Nuggets avoided catastrophe last night, so that's good news.
Narrowly avoided. The closest you can get to losing the worst game of the year, but pulling it out. I have a feeling we're going to talk about that later on. I don't know. Because on this show, we're going to take early victory laps for predictions that we believe, we can take a victory lap 1 week into the season on, but we're also going to try to take a mulligan perhaps on one of the predictions that we've lost some confidence in. So we'll get to both of those. We're also going to talk about the Bucks and the Celtics, but we start with the Orlando Magic because I love them and because Paolo Banchero last night goes for a career high 50 points in a win over the Indiana Pacers. I love this team. I mean, I've been talking about it for 2 years because I loved them last year. I love the additions that they made in KCP. But my big note here, obviously, was that the Orlando Magic had Paolo Banchero absolutely in his bag in the first half. 37 points. He finishes with 50, but he was scoring so smoothly yesterday. What did you see out of him and from the Magic?
So he had the jump shot going like crazy last night. I think like over 20 of the points that he scored last night came off jump shots. He hit 7 off the dribble. That's all super impressive. And those are going to be things that are big ceiling raisers for Paolo, things that will help him when he gets into later playoff rounds and things like that. But what I actually was super excited about was the way he closed the game, because his superpower is that he's bigger, stronger, and more athletic than the vast majority of players that he'll come across in the NBA. And on a night when he had his jump shot going down the stretch, he was like, oh, you got Aaron Nesmith on me? I'm just going to go right through him. Oh, I get this catch on the roll and Ben Shepherd standing in front of me. I'm just going to go right through him. And he was really just leveraging his physical gifts and not settling for jump shots down the stretch. And then when Indiana started to double team him, he just made the easy reads that were available so that they could play rotation basketball. I also thought an underrated part of the end of that game too was Pascal Siakam was kind of cooking against the Orlando guards in mismatches in the post. And Pascal did hit one really tough fadeaway on him in crunch time, but he got a couple of big stops on Pascal on an island too, where once again, he's leveraging his athletic gifts as a defensive player. And as far as Paolo's ceiling goes, my big picture concern is this team kind of sucks at moving the ball around. And that is definitely, and he is definitely one of the driving forces behind that sometimes. Yeah. And so it's a consistency thing with him. But to his credit, at the end of the game last night, he was keeping the ball moving, making quick decisions, and everything was flowing. And so really, to me, it's like with every young player, they tend to struggle at identifying what works and replicating it, and identifying what is not working for them and trimming that fat. And so over time, it's just him getting better at what he did at the end of the game last night, replicating what's working, trimming the fat, being more efficient in terms of his decision-making. But yeah, I think there will be some growing pains over the next few years, but I've always been super high on him. My buddy Sam Vecini, him and I used to argue about him or Franz, and I've always been higher on Paolo than I am on Franz.
Yeah, and I've always been a Franz guy, and in part because of exactly what you're saying. He has the skill set of a player that could break one of two ways, become too isocentric, really great scorer, and that becomes valuable, like you said, in certain roles, but becoming the all-around player, reading the court a little bit better, in those various things. I just see a lot of players that have such great footwork, such great touch, they almost overdo it. It's so hard to know the exact level of that type of play for a guy. But I think he's doing a better job of that this year. It was funny you mentioned the ball movement. I want to get back to that in a second. But the size part to me is where we start on this, because he is enormous. Like Pascal Siakam is a big player, a big defensive player. He looked like he was about 6'3", 180, trying to guard him last night. And there was a couple players, I think Isaiah Jackson, he drives to the hole. I think it was Isaiah Jackson. It might have been Nesmith, where they drive to the hole. He gives him the little, I have you on my hip, so I give you a little shoulder bump, and then two-hand dunks it on him. And I'm thinking, that looked like Shaq. Like, he was so enormous compared to his counterparts. And to me, when he got in a zone yesterday, like I've never seen him be in from jump shots, they were all swishes. And to me, he's not going to have that every night. In fact, he hasn't shot the ball well the previous 2 games. But when he has that going and he mixes in the drive and his size with it, you watch that and you go, how many defenders in the NBA match up with a guy when he shoots that well and has that size and knows how to use it? How many defenders are out there? 2 or 3? Giannis, a handful of guys. That's the physical advantage he has over almost everyone when he has it going.
Yeah, it's always going to be a counterbalance. The one thing that makes me worry about him ever becoming like a truly elite, like consistently great shooter is he crossfires a bit. And whenever guys crossfire, they tend to be a little bit streaky because they have more left to right potential on their jump shot when they're going kind of like in rhythm and when they're out of rhythm. It's a big part of why I think LeBron's been such a streaky shooter in his career, is he basically is crossfired for the majority of his career. But like it's not really something he needs to become great at, and I wouldn't want him to. I mean, you could make the case like a guy like Jason Tatum, one of the big kind of turning points of his career was leaning more into turning into a jump shooter than becoming this big, strong kind of interior force, right? And so, but at least with Tatum, I think he's got better shot mechanics. So I think he's got a better chance to shoot the ball well in the long run. But like, it's really just about keeping the defense honest, beating coverages, being able to rescue possessions. Like, that's the thing. The reason why LeBron's jump shot hasn't been a problem at all for him for the most part over the last 2/3 of his career is because he doesn't use it enough. It's more of just like a counter to his primary driving force of his success, which is his power. And that's the thing. Like, his power he is one of the most physically imposing forwards in the league. One of the 2 stops he got on Pascal, you were talking about Pascal guarding him. The 2 stops on Pascal, he completely smothered him on a fadeaway and forced him into a really bad miss. And then there was another one where Pascal tried to just kind of break him down off the dribble, and he like straight up swallowed him underneath the basket. He had nowhere to go, and he turned it over. And like he's got super long arms, super strong. His like center of gravity for a taller player is pretty low. Like he'll bump guys off and maintain his base. And so like the other thing too, he hasn't even really added kind of like the Jokic stuff, which is like, wait, what if he gets like a little bit of a left shoulder hook? You know what I mean? Like that's where it could get really, really scary in the long run.
I agree. I think he still has a long runway of like learning the game. And we talked about this a lot with legs with Anthony Edwards. With as good as he is, the difference between a great scorer who puts pressure, which is a very valuable player, and a guy that carries a team is the guy that understands all aspects of how to set the table and how all these pieces work. So that part of it, like if he can really learn how to force switches through, not just through on-ball actions, but through other things, force switches and now go down to the post, and that becomes impossible because of how big he is. And in today's league, you want to be able to switch as many guys as you can. If he's a guy that is a no switch, we're not switching anybody under 6'7" on him. That creates the tent pole of a really efficient offense. You talked about the passing though. This was a tale of 2 halves. Both Paolo got it going in the first half. I thought in the second half, he obviously cooled off quite a bit. I think just 13 points, half of those at the line. But I even thought the ball was popping in the first half for Orlando. There were some beautiful possessions there that I watched, and I think that's a very unselfish team. It's everybody there seems to love to guard. They have a lot of defensive players, but even on offense, there were 7 or 8 possessions where I watched and I was like, this looks like the Spurs. 7 passes, 3 dribbles, find the open man and get it going. And to me, their offense is the question. They're a defense that can win in the playoffs, but their offense, I'm not sure is an offense that can win in the playoffs. And when I saw possessions like that, you add guard play through Anthony Black. KCP knows how to keep the ball moving. They're not there yet. We're only 4 games in. But when you see a half of basketball where you get that, I go, okay, can they build on that to where that becomes a thing that's just part of their identity? They get this good 1 dribble attack, kick, swing, 1 dribble attack, swing, find the open man. That to me feels like the story I'm watching for this season with them and whether or not they can cultivate that identity.
It's the number one determining factor of their success over the next few years. Because as you said, like they are legitimately not just a good defense, they're a great defense. They're huge, they're athletic, they cover ground, they've got strength too. It's not just length. Like they are legitimately very good defensively, and they are a very, very imposing rebounding team. And so like they're going to win a lot of the dirty work battles that they're going to run into. And like, it's interesting though, because when we got into the playoffs last year, especially in the tail end of that Cavs series, what did them in was a complete lack of ball and player movement. It was actually kind of jarring to watch at the tail end of that series how Cleveland is like running good 5-out action, getting the ball side to side. There's guys moving and screening and cutting, and and just making life more difficult for Orlando's defense. And Orlando's like, walk the ball up the floor. Okay, here's a guard screen for Paolo. Oh, they didn't
Right.
switch it this time. Let's run it again. Okay, well, we kind of got a matchup we like. All right, now let's throw it to Paolo in the elbow. It's like it just is super, super slow and brute force. And I think, this is actually kind of a theory that I've had around the entire league, stemming from what's happened to the Lakers over the last couple of years and what happened to Dallas last year in the postseason. I think that we see some of these brute force offenses that pick on matchups and they really, really kind of like slow the game down in the half court. We see them really succeed against certain types of matchups, but they inevitably run into a team that has some sort of physical counter to what they do. Whether it's like, oh,
Right.
we have two big forwards that can switch the LeBron AD pick and roll, or that they can't just bull through in the post, or in the Mavs series, like, oh, well, we're just going to put Jason Tatum on your center so you can't run your high pick and roll. Now your lob threat is neutralized. And since your lob threat is neutralized, we're exposing you for a lack of guys who can hit above the break threes, right? Like you run into some sort of personnel limitation. And when that happens, suddenly the lack of baller and player movement becomes glaring. Like Dallas is kind of considered this elite offense, and look at how bad they looked offensively towards the tail end of like the Oklahoma City series and for the most part during that Celtics series. Like you have to have a certain amount of ball and player movement, which by the way, we're not even talking about Dallas, but they've been doing a little bit more of that this year with the talent that they've brought in. And so again, like I think the reason because of that, the reason that's causing that is one, we've got a lot of these really versatile forwards now that teams are deploying in unique ways, like putting them on centers and the like just a bunch of like really advanced kind of like defensive looks. And then teams can cover ground like crazy in rotation. And so the idea of just like running a spread pick and roll and throwing a skip pass, or, attacking out of a mismatch in the post and thinking you're going to be able to live on that, you have to have ball and player movement now. You have to have variety. You have to get the ball going side to side and break these defenses down step by step instead of in one big home run swing. And so, like, I just think in general, it's a league wide thing that everyone's got to figure out. And Orlando's not, they're not they are also beholden to that reality.
The team I think most relies on what you're talking about is the 76ers, who I think are obviously a phenomenal Embiid team. But to me, that as great as he is, they have to work in some other things, in particular, getting Tyrese Maxey maximized alongside Embiid. And so I talked about that a little bit yesterday, but that's the team to me that most is what you're talking about. It works 99% of the time, but in the playoffs, it probably only works 70% of the time. And now what is your other option? Where to go after that? And I think they have to cultivate it. But what I
Denver,
love,
really quick. Denver is such a great example of this. Like they can two-man game you to death and pick on matchups with Jamal and kill you out of the post with Jokic, but like they do not lean entirely on that. They have a 5-out motion side to side to make sure that they have another punch in their bag. That's the key.
yeah. I think the other thing I want to talk about here, the absolute apex of fanhood in the NBA. Well, I think when your team is just dominant, like the Celtics fans right now probably have it best. They dominated to a win. They look good, and they're probably going to be good for a while. That's the apex. I think the second apex is when you're a young team and everything is great. And the Orlando Magic are there, and one play exemplified it, and it was Anthony Black, who I love, by the way, one of my guys. I love his game. Seems like a good kid, plays the right way, and I think has a good base to him. Hits a three in the corner to win. They closed with him last night, which was kind of big. Franz Wagner is sick. They have to go somebody else. They go with him, and they close. And they swing the ball to him in the quarter for the win, and he knocks it down. They get a stop on the other end, and Paolo secures the ball. Paolo's going to the line for 50 points, but they don't go over to Paolo. They go over to Anthony Black. And I just thought it was so cool because they knew, hey, young fella, this was your moment. You won the game for us and stepped in. And to me, that's the sweet spot of fanhood. When you're a young team, the future's so bright, and you're seeing all these little moments where someone new enters the fold. And I just thought it was such a cool moment. And then after the game, Jalen Suggs almost got emotional talking about Anthony Black and how hard he's working and stuff. And I just watched that and I go, that Magic team is full of guys that seem to love basketball, care about the right things, and are all working hard because they can kind of taste it. They're like almost over the hump and they can taste it. And I just think that's the sweet spot if you're an NBA fan.
It's always like a special thing when a team like literally genuinely, not just in the things that they say in press conferences, but when there's an obvious, visible, like tangible, like real enthusiasm for team success versus individual success. Like when everyone's actively rooting for everyone else around them to succeed. I mean, just put it simply with Jalen Suggs. I mean, when this team is healthy, they're going to have Franz on the floor. They're going to have Paolo on the floor. They're going to have Wendell Carter Jr. on the floor. Like Anthony Black is kind of sort of technically in a positional battle with Jalen Suggs. Like there might be nights in the future where Jalen doesn't have it going and they go with KCP and Anthony Black in the backcourt. Like those are technically like, but that's the cool part. Jalen Suggs don't care. He's in it for the big picture goals of the team. And the exciting part too is like he ran a little action at the end of the game, ran a little ball screen, Wendell Carter Jr. and set him up with a pocket pass for a foul. He got a big steal on that post entry that Andrew Nembhard was trying to throw. He can play, man. He can play. It's exciting.
And the rebound at the very end, you know, he didn't secure it, but he was part of collecting it, you know, crashing the boards. Like he just makes winning plays. Nathan in the chat here says, would you rather have Jalen Suggs or Derek White? And the reason I love this question is, I mean, I would take Derek White, but I think that Jalen Suggs, last night when I was watching him, I thought this guy reminds me a lot of Derek White. And I love Suggs, but I think they have some similar skills. Let's see if Suggs can shoot the ball as well, you know, continue to shoot the ball as well as he has out of the gate. But talk about a winning play. He is, you should make a list of guys that make winning plays the most frequently. And Jalen Suggs, he's top 5. I don't know what the list is, but he's top 5. Derek White might also be on this list. Drew Holiday might be on this list. This is what makes the Celtics so great. But Suggs makes so many plays. 50-50 balls, he's more of an 80, like a 20-80 guy. If he has a 20% chance of getting a loose ball, he's getting it. Defensive rotations are insane. He kept the ball out of Haliburton's hands last night, and when he did catch the ball, he forced him off of his right hand all night long. And so Nembhard was really the primary initiator all game, which obviously limits what Indiana can do. He's one of the players that you can throw out there and say, okay, we neutralize. You have a good guard that initiates your offense. We neutralize that. Where are you going to tonight? Because you're not going there. I love his game, and I think he is just an unbelievable player.
Samus Fondiari, who covers the Warriors, tweeted this out the other day, and it's something that I agree with, which is he basically said that ball pressure guards that can really take another opposing guard out of his comfort zone and disrupt the initial phase of the opponent's offense is like one of the biggest market inefficiencies in the NBA right now. And I totally agree with him because like, again, like when you can really bog an offense down and cause them to go away from their bread and butter, play uncomfortable and play deep into the shot clock without getting into their, you know, kind of their pet sets, it just forces them to play a brand of basketball that they're not used to playing. And one of the things I agree with you, Derek White's better than Jalen Suggs. We're not going to have any sort of.
I think they're a similar mold. I think they're a similar mold.
The one thing that Jalen Suggs has that is different from Derek White that I think is something that is super valuable too is he's kind of like trunkier and stronger, and he's a little bit more of like a difficult athlete to derail in straight line situations. And obviously, again, doesn't make him better than Derek, but there's a different value there too in physical environments with his strength. And like, this is something you remember this from Bruce Brown when he was with the Nuggets. Like when you can win some of these battles on the ground, because of your low center of gravity and your ability to bump people off of their lines. Like Bruce Brown, like was a devastating playoff weapon with what he was able to do, ball pressure, and with like little transition pushes and straight line attacks and stuff like that. Obviously, Derek White's got such a better off the dribble jump shooting package. He's just like a little bit smarter of a player in read and react situations. But Jalen Suggs does have a real straight line athleticism and strength and like kind of foundation piece that makes him intriguing and kind of like almost like a hybrid in the sense that he's like a guard, but he kind of functions almost as a wing defensively at times when they need him to.
I mean, Drew Holiday has this, right? Like if he could, same thing, you can pressure, but he's strong enough that when he gets switched, it's like, that's not a loss. And I think if you look at Boston and Oklahoma City, I love the point about full court pressure, by the way, because it's so funny to watch every year things evolve as teams adjust how they build their rosters. Like, hey, now do you have enough ball handling? Well, we have on-ball pressure, and we're going to take you away from that. You look at Oklahoma City, they actually, I think, even beat Boston in this. Boston's top 2 guys probably better than Oklahoma City's top 2 guys, but Oklahoma City's top 6 guys, I mean, they roll 6 deep with guys that you can say full court press. Lou Dort, full court press. Basically to anybody, Kason Wallace, and just wear guys down. And so few teams have enough ball handling in their best all-around lineups to be able to say, like, all right, we have to go to our 3rd ball handler because they have 2 guys that can pressure our other 2 guys, and we just have to spare them. So I agree with you. I think Orlando is building a similar roster where they have a lot of guys that can just full court press you and disrupt what you're doing. And in Suggs' case, completely cancel you out of whatever it is you're trying to do. I love that team. I saw the chat was joking about my guys. I have a type. Like, if you look at my guys, I have a list of role players that I love, and I claim all of them. One of my guys preseason, Ben Shepherd, by the way, I love Ben Shepherd, and he's been so good for them. He's another mini Jalen Suggs. So people don't clip this and take it out of context, but he's another guy that just makes winning plays, extra rebounds, screens hard, cuts hard, always in the right spot, and he was good for them. I think Indiana, 4 games in, I think they're going to have to play him more because they have more talented guards, but I don't think they have more guards that fit what they're trying to do. And I think in short order, he'll be one of those guys that when they make decisions, hold on to him, maybe move one of your other pieces. Do you have any other thoughts though about Indiana? They're struggling. Haliburton's really struggling. Do you have any thoughts about them and why they're struggling?
It's really just Haliburton looks so bad. And that's the thing is, like, I mean, going into last night, I talked about him in my show yesterday. I think he was at like 12 points per game on like 39% true shooting. But like he was also only averaging 4 assists per game. I think he was below 4 assists per game before last night. Now, for the record, I actually thought Haliburton made a couple of really nice plays in ball screens at the end of last night's game. He generated a couple of corner threes. There was like a tiny little window into maybe sorta he's starting to get a little more confident just at the very end of that game. And obviously he hit game tying threes in each of the last 2 games, even though his jump shot hasn't been going in. But like one of the things that's interesting with Haliburton is like he's in this interesting dynamic that you see with playmakers sometimes. I talk about this all the time. Like if you're a scorer, if you don't show at least a willingness to make the defense pay for loading up on you, then they're just going to load up on you all day and you're going to be an inefficient scorer. You have to pass the defense loose on you. Same thing goes for Haliburton as a scorer. Like when he's not hitting his pull-up jump shot, I think going into last night, he had like 6 total makes at the rim in 3 games. Like if you're not getting to the rim, if you're not demonstrating that you can score the basketball, then you're not going to warp the defense enough for you to be able to make all of those kick-out reads that makes Tyrese Haliburton such a gifted playmaker in this league. And so I'm not overly worried about it. I'm a little annoyed just because he was so damn good at the start of last year, and he just hasn't gotten back to that level since the hamstring. I'm trying not to overreact to such a small sample, but he was like one of my favorite players to watch last year. And I am kind of annoyed that he hasn't been able to get back to that level.
And they're not fun as a team. And that's one of my big takes is I think my power ranking of like league pass teams most fun to watch, I think I had them number 1. I haven't enjoyed watching them yet this year. And I hope that is just a little blip as they kind of figure out who and what they are again. Let's look at the schedules real quick, producer James, before we get out of here. Indiana coming up because they're struggling and they need to get a little bit of a streak going. Do we have their schedule? Looks like not. Do we have Orlando's? Because I know Orlando... let's see here. Orlando Magic, they have a 5-game road trip coming up. So the Orlando Magic off to a good start. Vibes are high, but this will really test them. At Chicago, who's kind of plucky right now, at Cleveland, at Dallas, at Oklahoma City, at Indiana. They're going to be underdogs in probably 4 out of those 5 games. Chicago, I think they'll be favored, against Chicago, even though that's a tough, it's not an easy one. But I look at that and I go, this is a good story, but now the real test comes. Do you have any quick thoughts here on this upcoming schedule?
I think it'll be interesting, that Cleveland game in particular. Cleveland's on my list for this afternoon when I get down at the gym. I'm coming home and I'm watching a bunch of Cavs, and I want to see if there's anything real here. I've seen some of the Evan Mobley on ball stuff, but like that matchup, especially in light of what happened in the postseason last year, that'll be the one I'm watching.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting too. All right, let's take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk the Celtics because both teams are kind of moving in opposite directions, and it was a really good game last night. So we'll get to that as well as our preseason predictions. We already need a mulligan on the other side. But first, put that all-in pricing button that's on the very top, and you'll know exactly what the checkout price is. So you don't get to the end and all of a sudden it's $200 more than you thought. Nope, you go there, taxes, fees, everything is already factored in, so you can make a smart decision about what ticket you want. And another thing I like about them is sometimes you don't know a concert. It wasn't on your radar, but a concert you really want to see is in your area, and you hop on the Game Time app and just scroll concerts. And all of a sudden you go, oh, wow, I didn't know that. My favorite band is in town this weekend. Let me see if there's some last-minute ticket deals. It's a really good way to kind of peruse what's going on in your area. If you want to buy NFL tickets or NBA tickets, it's got that great deal. And then I always tell people, drive to the arena, park your car, pay for the parking, and then hop on the app, because right before the game starts, ticket prices will drop as people trying to unload some of those last minute tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ALLNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code ALLNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Also, want to tell you guys about Fitbod. Really cool app, Fitbod, where you can put in what it is your goals are for working out. You want to gain some muscle. Maybe you want to tone up a little bit. Maybe you want to lose weight. You put in your weight, you put in your height. It'll give you as detailed of a workout plan as you want. And another cool feature it has is you can say, this is what equipment I have. Maybe you have a home gym. You have a couple dumbbells, barbells, whatever it is. You say, hey, here's what I'm working with. Can you make a full body workout or even a full workout plan based on the equipment I have? And it'll get very creative and share with you different workouts you can use using your equipment. It's really good for when you're on the go. If you're somebody who travels a lot and you're constantly staying at different hotels, you don't know what gym you're going to have or how much equipment. You show up, you say, okay, what do I have? I want to get a good chest workout in. Here's what I've got. And it'll give you great workouts full with animated descriptions of how to do the workout. So if it's a workout you never heard of, it'll give you a nice animation to show you exactly the form that you want to do, the speed, all those different things. And then it tracks everything for you. It's really handy in that you can put in everything you lift, everything you're working out, how long you worked out, what days, what your weight is. It tracks it, everything. So everything you need to kind of create a comprehensive workout plan, it'll do it for you on Fitbod. So lock in and stay focused. Join Fitbod today to get your personalized workout plan. Get 25% off your subscription or try the app for free for 7 days. I mean, what do you have to lose? 7 days here. Try it for free at fitbod.me/ALLNBA. That's FITBOD.me/ALLNBA. All right, back here, segment 2. I'm with Jason Timpf. You check out his YouTube show, Hoops Tonight. Really good show, always breaking down. You see, he's a great analyst. He does this every single day covering the NBA, so you're going to want to check out that YouTube channel as well. Another game that happened last night, Bucks Celtics. Bucks had just dropped 2 horrible games, absolutely horrible games. Was it Brooklyn and Chicago? Games you thought they were going to win. You thought this was the year. Okay, Dame, all off season. He's had a good off season. He's in shape. The partnership is going to get better and better. Horrible losses coming into a marquee matchup against the Boston Celtics, who we all know are smacking everybody. They're the opposite. And this game was really competitive and really close till about 2 minutes left in the third quarter. And this is what the Celtics do. You work all game to make no mistakes, and you're just neck and neck. I think Milwaukee was up 80-79 with about 2 minutes to go. And by 2 minutes into the fourth quarter, the game was over. 15, 20 points. And it was just a barrage of threes. Derek White was hitting them. Peyton Pritchard had his patented end of quarter heave that went in. And it just was one of those things. I see it with Oklahoma City and I see it with Boston more than any other team I've watched so far this year. They just get these little moments, almost like the Warriors back in 2015, where you could be good for as long as you are, but if you have 2 minutes where you just hiccup, the game gets out of hand. That's what happened in last night's game. And Boston opened up a lead that they just never let go. So what did you see from this one?
Yeah, it was specifically like the hustle and execution details that surprised me. Like I always am fascinated by this because we always think, oh, Boston's the most talented roster in the league, or Oklahoma City is the most talented roster in the Western Conference. But like they're also 2 of the smartest and hardest working teams in the league. And that's the thing. I'm always fascinated too by teams like Milwaukee. You want to know why they lost to Brooklyn and why they lost to what was it, Toronto before that? I can't remember exactly.
Was it Toronto? I thought it was Chicago, but I don't remember. It was somebody
Chicago.
bad.
It was Chicago. It was definitely Chicago.
Okay.
So yeah, and that one was at home for them. But like in those losses, like I watched the Nets game in particular, and they were so brutally bad on defense in that game. The effort was pitiful. It's like they're trying to make a run, and Dame's just standing in the corner while a guy back cuts him and gets a tip dunk, or Bobby Portis is floating around. Pat Connaughton can't guard anybody. Like it's an absolute disaster. And like one of the things I've always found fascinating about NBA history is, yeah, there are examples of teams that flip the switch and win in the playoffs, but they're always defending champs with enormous talent advantages. It's never this Milwaukee Bucks team that like hasn't won in several years and hasn't, like, you can't cut corners. You have to attack the regular season from day one because you establish habits. When you establish habits, they carry you in games like this. What I always think is fascinating in a game like that, like you said, it's like a game of tug of war, and like the Celtics are pulling on the rope and they're never going to let go because they're the
Yeah.
Celtics and they're sharp. And it's like the Bucks, it's like they're impersonating a serious team. They're like, we could do this. We're hanging with the Celtics. And then they let go. And it's like now Peyton Pritchard's beating them to loose balls and they're not boxing out Jordan Walsh, cutting out of the left corner. Bobby Portis is getting lazy on a switch and not contesting a three. And it's like, boom, a couple of big mistakes. And then the one that put him down 13, it's like Bobby Portis blitzes Jaylen Brown above the break on the left wing and doesn't contain the ball. Jaylen Brown just splits it, goes right downhill and gets the easy kick out to Peyton Pritchard. And so like, you can't, Boston has so much talent. You can't also have Gary Trent Jr. lose two 50-50 balls to Peyton Pritchard, who's a smaller, less athletic player than him. You can't also be the team that's not executing properly. Like that is the part that is discouraging for Milwaukee. And I mean, have we ever talked about Doc Rivers on the show? Are you a fan?
You can go into it. I don't think we have.
It's just, and that's the thing. It's like, I think with teams like this, there's a little bit too much focus on like, oh, Doc can manage the personalities. Doc can help navigate
By the way, no.
season. And yeah, no, by the way, no.
Even that part, like, first of all, if that's the good part, but we'll get to the bad part. I have some quotes here that are concerning on that part, but yes.
Exactly. What like the reality is like, and this is something I actually talked about this a lot last year when I would juxtapose Mike Malone with Darvin Ham when they're in the playoff series. You need active coaching. I refer to it as active coaching. All it is, in my opinion, is like, are you in the game fighting with the players to try to win? And essentially, to me, that's like accountability. That's like, if they don't get back on defense one possession, you'd be losing your damn mind on the sideline, letting them know that's not okay. When a guy misses a box out, when a guy dies on a screen, when a guy doesn't make a second effort in rotation, when a guy isn't cracking down from the weak side to help get a defensive rebound, like when guys aren't doing their jobs, like when you see the Mike Malone types, it's been such a breath of fresh air to watch JJ Redick doing it this year. When there's a dude on the sideline who's actively holding his team accountable on a possession by possession basis as a continuation of everything that happens behind the scenes, you become a sharp, disciplined team that habitually executes and makes all those effort plays. And so I just thought it was fascinating because like the Celtics did not need that game as much as the Bucks did last night. I mean, no one really needs that game. It's 82 game regular season, but the Bucks, off of two embarrassing losses, could have completely changed the outlook on their season by winning that game in Boston. Boston's 3-0. Who cares what would have happened? And they're outworking you down the stretch of the game. That can't happen. That to me is a strong indicator of like the difference between a serious basketball team and an unserious basketball team. I will say though, last note on the Bucks, like they're just playing a lot of really bad defensive personnel. Yeah. And the bad defensive personnel is also not sharp, disciplined, and playing hard consistently. And so they have these like stretches of not just bad defense, but abominably bad defense where they can lose control of games. Like that Nets game, they lost control of it in a handful of minutes at the start of the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden they're digging up the hills so much that they have no chance to win. And so that to me is like something that from a personnel standpoint, I'm not sure they have an answer to.
First of all, on your coaching point, I love what you said about being active and engaged in the game, possession by possession. I'm going to call these the Jamal Mosley All-Stars because to me, he's the number one guy. If you ever watch him, he's running up and down the sideline. He's sweating. He burns 3,000 calories a game coaching because of how he's jumping. He's getting in a stance. It's actually awesome, and it matches his team's intensity. But you mentioned the defense, 26th in defensive rating this year, 29th in opponent turnover percentage. And I'm with you. They only have so many good defensive players, and they have a lot of guys that don't, namely Damian Lillard, who I think if you look at seasons past when they've had a great defense, it's been we're forcing turnovers. We have athletes everywhere. We can get into you, and, we give up some back doors. We give up some things around the rim every now and then, but we're constantly using our athleticism and length. Lillard, and maybe this goes to your coaching point as well, Lillard is sort of a calm guy. He's not even his celebration. He hits a game winner and it's quiet and calm, right? Like his energy is always here and that works for him. But defensively, I just look at that team and I go, can they be good? You have Giannis, you have guys that you would think can be terminators. But if the whole team is not there, there's like always a release valve to, we got stuck in a trap, release it. We can get out of it and reset the offense. And I look at that and I go, I don't think this team can defend. And if they can't defend, I'm sorry, the league has moved in a direction where your offense better be unbelievable to match with the top offensives in the NBA. Even with Dame and Giannis, they're not that. And so I look at that team, and we're going to talk about him here in a second. I'm so discouraged by what we saw from them. Because I thought last night they gave playoff level intensity for 3 quarters and they still came up short, albeit to a great team. That defense to me is the part that I look at and I don't believe in.
And to your point, like there is a version of this where you can put together at least a respectable defense through attentiveness and discipline and like everything that we talked about from the coaching standpoint. And like that's the thing, like if you're going to let Dame get away with the BS effort that he's putting out there defensively, you might as well just write off the season because they're not good enough offensively to be able to make up for being that bad on the defensive end of the floor. I mean, if you're begging for any sort of upside, like I did think Gary Trent did a decent job on Tatum last night. Gary Trent's kind of an interesting guy in the sense that like he's very aggressive on the ball. Like he tries to attack your pocket, like he tries to attack and disrupt your rhythm. And I actually think that worked pretty well on Tatum because he's got a little bit of a long gather. And so as he kind of disrupted that caused some issues. So like if you're looking for one tiny silver lining, it's like Giannis did some damage to the Celtics guards and switches in the post, that patented like kind of baseline pump fake step through thing that he does. I don't know.
He had a lot of those.
However he turns that into a dunk, I don't know, but good for him. But like the post ups of the guards, I thought Dame did some damage to the Celtics in pick and roll by getting downhill just because he's so much faster than their bigs. And then obviously I said Gary Trent did a good job on Tatum, but like that those are a few small bright spots, but it also just kind of feels like, and this is kind of a Celtics thing where last year, before about halfway through the season and kind of extending into the previous iterations of the Celtics, it kind of felt like they would have these stretches where they would just take really bad shots for a long time and then they lose control and they wouldn't be able to regain control of a situation. The Celtics now, and I got this feeling watching the game last night, I'm not sure if you felt the same way. It feels like, yeah, they have stretches where they get settle-y and they'll take some tough shots. But now it always feels like they know when they're like, hey, guys, it's time to get serious. Let's really execute and get good shots here. And it feels like they're having more ability to regain control when they had their ugly offensive stretches. And so I kind of felt watching that game, even when Milwaukee was in it, I kind of felt like they're going to get better shots when this thing matters. But ironically, they ended up winning it with effort with those bench guys. But yeah, I never really truly felt like Boston was threatened last night.
Of course. I mean, that's part of how we just feel about Boston right now. They're in such a rhythm that I keep waiting. We're not going to talk a ton about Boston, but I keep waiting for I want a good game to be able to talk about them, but they just keep blowing everyone out. So it's coming, Boston. Celtics fans, don't take offense to it. You got to pick an interesting moment to break down a team, but at the moment they're just smacking everyone because they're so dang good. And I'll tell you my last take as we do. Actually, 2 more takes. One more on the Bucks, and that is Giannis following the loss to Brooklyn. He had this quote, which I always find a little alarming. Right now, we don't have an identity. Like, how are we going to win the game? Are we going to defend for 48 minutes? Are we going to move the ball for 48 minutes? Are we going to attack and play fast for 48 minutes? We got to find an identity. We don't have that now. I'll tell you what their identity is. Their identity is Dame, Giannis, over and over again. And Dame tries to cook, gives it to Giannis, tries to cook. And every now and then they throw it to Bobby Portis. And if you look at, they both have, Dame and Giannis both have, I think, a 32 and 33 usage rate. The only other team that has 2 guys in the 30s, I believe, is the Boston Celtics with Tatum and Brown. But when I watch their team, I go, for one, they don't play off each other that great still. And for 2, there's nothing else that happens. Like, I watched every offensive possession for the last 8 minutes or something, and it just was one of those 2 things that felt like over and over in a way that was kind of predictable and not that effective. And I think that's an issue. But the other thing I wanted to talk about here, and this one I do want to throw to you, the Celtics, right now, the bench in the NBA is such an advantage if you have any type of depth. Most teams don't. And you look around the league, there's parity, and I think some of the new rules have what has led to a lot of teams have a good 5 guys, maybe 6, but not a lot of teams have depth. Well, Oklahoma City the other night won by 20 points. They played AJ Mitchell major minutes. Last night, the Boston Celtics played Jordan Walsh, rotation minutes. And I look at that and I go, these teams are so good, but somehow still find minutes for developmental guys in key moments. And I just look at that and I go, how do you build a big bench when you have the most expensive starting lineup in the league? You just play them minutes throughout the season and hope that you find 1 or 2 guys that just become a pipeline. Hauser has become that. Pritchard has become that over the years. Now Jordan Walsh, who I kind of like the length and some of the stuff he does, but I'm not necessarily a believer. but you see him out there getting these minutes, and I go, who knows, man? You play in that system and it works. And the two best teams in the league both are doing that to their end of bench guys.
It's definitely advantage when your starters are so damn good that you're not threatened. I mean, like I didn't watch the Raptors game last night, but I watched the Clippers game and I watched the Thunder game for the Nuggets. And I'm sure every single time the bench has checked in, you've been kind of like,
Sure.
all right, guys, here we go.
Take your breath.
let's see how this goes, you know? And
Mhm.
I'm a little bit like that too with the Lakers, where it's like, okay, here comes Dalton Connect, here comes Max Christie. Like, you know, Max Christie's trying to dunk on everybody last night. It's like, hey, bro, those are 7-footers. It's not going to be very easy. But it's like that's the thing is like those teams just don't have the margin for error to justify it. I will say structure helps. So like and this is, by the way, one of the reasons why I'm not as down on Denver as everyone else is. Like before last night, they were getting outscored on their bench groups with Jokic off the floor by over 40 points per 100 possessions. Like that's a disaster. But like Mike Malone has always found a way to get that number down to roughly 10 points per 100 possessions, 10 or 11 points per 100 possessions through organization. And that's the thing. Like if you have really good organization from the coaching staff down, and it's like, hey, Jordan, here's what we need you to do. Like when you're in that corner and they ignore you, catch and shoot if you're open, obviously.
Right.
If you see the low man step up on a drive or on a short roll, cut along the baseline, see if you can't make yourself available as a dunker, and then every time, like hell, crash the offensive glass when the shot goes up. And then on defense, here's what you do within the game plan. Like if everything is really structured for young players, I think that they can succeed. But in some of these teams that don't have as much structure or don't have as much surrounding talent to make small achievable roles, I think it gets more difficult. But like I do think that there's something to be said about process. And to your point, I do think even teams that aren't as talented as Oklahoma City and Boston should be able to find more opportunities for young players during the season.
To your point about Denver, absolutely right now you worry about playing anybody off the bench, let alone going deep into your bench. But not last year. Last year, Denver had arguably the best starting five in the NBA until things fell apart for them, but they had a great one. Reggie Jackson played 81 games last year. Didn't make sense to me. It wasn't like, oh, we can't afford not to play Reggie Jackson. That was the year to me where it's like, all right, let's mix in some options. Let's mix in some looks. Now the bill is due to where you desperately need depth, and you have a bunch of guys who have never played in the NBA that have been sitting on the bench for a couple of years. So in my opinion, you look at Boston, you look at Oklahoma City, and the handful of these good teams, and they just seem to right now find time to both get better at the end of their bench while also winning and dominating with their sledgehammer starting lineups. But those are the games for today. What we are going to do now, though, is we're only a week into the season, exactly 1 week into the season. So it's time to kind of take a mulligan on some of the things we were so confident about coming into the preseason. We each picked one, maybe a couple honorable mentions. Do you want to go first, or do you want me like, maybe this is one you don't want to go first on?
I will go first. So
Okay.
I picked Denver to win the West. And I would never bail on that from 4 games or 3 games or whatever, to be clear. But like, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you they don't look close right now.
Yeah.
The reason why what I'm trying to cling to in terms of like any sort of optimism surrounding that take is, one, you've given me a lot of insight into Jamal Murray's approach in terms of the way he kind of eases his way into regular seasons and kind of, we talked on the phone once and you're like, yeah, he'll kind of turn it up in January before the All-Star game. And then like you try to make that last push. And so part of me is like, I do think Jamal Murray will eventually at least become somewhat closer to the version of himself that he used to be. And I think Michael Porter Jr. is just not hitting shots. Like Michael Porter Jr., I think is going to eventually kind of get back into form. And I think that inevitably to the NBA, because of just how good it is. Like last night's a great example. Like Toronto kind of woke Denver up a little bit down the stretch of that game, right? Like it's one of those things where the NBA doesn't have a lot of off nights anymore, so you have no choice but to kind of figure your stuff out. So like, and lastly, with Denver as a point of optimism, I'm a big believer that Jokic is the best player in the league. But when he's hitting 40+% from 3, he's by far the best player in the league.
Agreed.
Like I don't think it's close at that point. And so that was one of the big things that was kind of a down mark for Denver last year, was Jokic wasn't shooting the ball well, and he's shooting the ball so well to start this year. I think that's super encouraging. So like, I'm not ready to bail on the take entirely, but I'd be lying to you if I don't feel a little foolish for saying they're going to win the West to start the year.
When you that was a playoff prediction, correct? Not a
Yeah,
regular
yes,
season
it was.
prediction.
I think OKC gets the 1 seed no matter what.
Yeah.
But I also thought Denver would be a top 4 seed, and like right now right now they look like they could be more in that 5-6 range if they don't get their stuff together here. But we'll see.
They have to figure out who they are, and they definitely have to get more out of Jamal, who I think has actually been giving more effort. Typically, I don't think the results have necessarily been different, but I do think his approach has been correct. And I'm a believer that if your approach is correct and you have talent, you will figure it out in short order. So I think Jamal, I'm actually in many ways impressed with what he's brought, even if the results haven't matched. And I agree with you. Michael Porter not hitting shots is weird, but he's never missed shots for long periods of time. The Denver one's interesting, and it's funny, man. So, we're friends. I called you on the phone maybe a month ago. It's like, hey, let's talk Nuggets. Let's kind of go over some stuff here. And what's funny is I feel like I almost talked you into the Nuggets a little bit, kind of.
It's your fault.
It's my fault a little bit. Well, what's funny is, I go through preseason. I'm, behind the scenes a little bit. I hear this, I hear that, I hear whatever. And, I really cooled on the Nuggets coming into the year. And it was funny because I got a lot of hate mail from Nuggets fans saying, hey, man, even Jason Timpf is high on the Nuggets and you're low on him like this. And I'm like, I was like, man, you think it was like we talk, man. That was a funny conversation. But to your point, I am with you in that the Nuggets to me they look like the worst team in the league for long stretches of this season so far. But I still believe they're the best team. Like even compete with the Bostons and Oklahoma Cities because they have Jokic, because we know Murray's ceiling, and because all these other things around the perimeter or the periphery. Right now, I look at it and I go, those things can be solved. I don't know if they will. They can also not be solved, but they can be solved. They can find some guys that contribute. Peyton Watson right now doesn't know who or what he is, but he's a major piece for them. And there are some positive signs. So Denver, all right. I thought that might be your big mulligan on the season. And it sounds like it's only a half mulligan.
Really quick too, like some of the guys are like playing like I'm not a Russell Westbrook fan, to be clear, but like you can't play much worse than he did in those first 2 games. Like Dario Saric, is he the best backup center in the league? No, but he's not as bad as he showed through the first few games of the season. So like I do think that some of these guys might just play a little better too.
I'm worried. Those 2 in particular, I'm worried about. But Denver maybe has options outside or alongside. My the one I'm gonna take an L on is that I thought the Celtics, with the injury to Kristaps Porzingis and just with the improvements across the East, like, I thought the Bucks would challenge them a little bit more. I thought the Pacers were going to be tougher. And, there's all these other teams that could challenge them on a night-to-night basis. And then maybe one of the teams, Sixers or somebody, is just going to make them work hard for the 1 seed. And then Porzingis' absence would hurt. I feel like they could lose 2 more guys and still be the 1 seed. Like that's how much of a gap I feel after 1 week. I don't think the Celtics are going to be challenged for the 1 seed. The playoffs can be a different story when we get there, although we know what they did in the playoffs last year. But right now, I feel like I'll take an L on the Celtics. I think they're going to have the 1 seed locked up at the same rate they had it last year. They just look like a team that wins easy in the regular season. I'd be shocked if they didn't get 60 wins. And if Porzingis doesn't come back to January, does it really move the needle? Right now, they're beating everybody without him because they have just a great system in place. So that was one to me where I looked at them and I thought, it's not going to be able to take their foot off the gas in April like they did last year. They might actually be able to do that once again.
They've done a nice job keeping Horford's minutes reasonable and not overworking him. And then I think we talked about this earlier, but perimeter speed and the ability to cover ground and get into the basketball are such valuable skills in the regular season that I think that just gives them such a very high floor. And so they're going to drop some regular season games. They're going to drop some regular season games where they don't play their best players and teams pick their backup centers apart in ball screens and they go cold from 3. They're not going to go, 75 and 13 or whatever the hell it is. But they're 75 and 7. But they're going to win a lot. I mean, we're getting close to the are they going to get to 70 wins? I think that's on the that's
when will you start to wonder about that? I think we got to wait 20 games. We can't do that after 4 games, even though they look like nobody's challenging them.
It's so funny you said that because I actually typed it into my notes yesterday. I was like, is this something and then I was like, no, Jason, it's too early. We got to take that out of this. But my victory laps, two very small ones. I said before the season that I thought the Clippers were going to be a really solid regular season team just because they, just like that concept we just talked about, they have waves and waves of really fast, athletic perimeter defenders that can get into the ball and cover ground in rotation. And then James Harden is just a rock solid regular season shot creator. And that just gives them an extremely high floor. And I mean, they're a double teamed, smothered right shoulder fadeaway from Kevin Durant from being undefeated right now with big wins over a bunch of really good teams. And then the second one, I don't think the Lakers are a top tier championship contender, but I've been consistently screaming from the mountaintops like this is a good team for a while because over the last 46 games of the year last year, they were I think they had the fourth best win percentage in the league. And so that they just had this really bad stretch in December where they went 3-10 and then everyone was convinced they were bad. I think the Lakers are good. I think that JJ Redick it brings that organization and discipline element that they were missing, which is going to make them an even sharper regular season team. You saw their personnel limitations. D'Lo got relentlessly picked on by DeMar DeRozan 2 nights ago and KD last night. But they're going to have to do something with him if they're going to have any chance of making any real playoff noise. But I do think the Lakers are a decent team, and they've proven that here early in the season.
They also have flexibility to make a move, as we always know they're a threat to do it. So they're a team that obviously has great two players, and they do have some pieces I like. You almost said Dalton Connect's name earlier disparagingly. I love that dude. I mean,
he had a rough game last night as well.
Did he? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I saw someone in the chat saying no Lakers, no Lakers. You know, I had a Nuggets game to cover, and then I could only watch 2 games. We picked the 2. Paolo's game and this and that. We got to get to Knicks sometime this week. We have to get to Cavs. So there's some other teams on this show we haven't quite covered, but we rather go in depth on 1 or 2 games than kind of just go shallow on a lot. That's just the format of the show. So we will get to Lakers. We will get to Cavs. We will get to Knicks. But unfortunately today was not their day. I like those ones. I'm with you. The Lakers do look good, and JJ Redick looks phenomenal. I love that everybody shouts out the attention to detail. They seem to know on a night-to-night basis where their advantages are and how to attack those advantages. And they've been crisp in ways that I wouldn't have expected this early. So I'm with you that I think the Lakers are for real. They are shallow, and they are, LeBron, I'm always going to look at this and just go, how many games can he play? At some point it'll catch up, and that one thing will probably make this whole house of cards fall for them a little bit. But until that happens, I'm with you. If I take a victory lap, one, Dyson Daniels off to a big start. He was one of my guys. I love that guy. I loved his fit there. I thought he was such a diamond hiding in plain sight. He is shooting a little bit better than his career average right now, and that's not something I necessarily believe in. But as a defensive player, I mean, again, you know my guys now, Timpf. Suggs, Ben Shepherd, Dyson Daniels. Like, I love these guards that just do the
Another
right
big,
thing.
strong guard that can fly around on the perimeter. Yeah.
I got a type here. But, he's been great. And then Ryan Dunn was my number 1 guy in the draft. When I watched him play, I thought that guy is a shooter. He's not, you see guys when they're labeled like he's Matisse Thybulle or something, and you watch him and I'm like, his form looks good. He's fluid in movements. Like everything he does looks nice. And then defensively, he's a monster. And I mean, it's really dumb to take a non-shooter's 3-point percentage after 12 shots or whatever it is, but he is shooting, I think 43%. I wrote it down here, 7 of 16. I'll take a victory lap on him because even if that number drops to 33%, I think he would have gone maybe even in the lottery. If people thought he was a 34, 35% shooter, they would have gone in the lottery. People thought he wasn't that. And the truth is he might be an actual 3-and-D player. I love that dude's game, and I'll take an early victory lap on him.
He changes the physical profile of that team. Sam Vecini told me actually on my show when we had him on for the draft this summer that he was one of the very best defensive prospects he has ever scouted.
Yeah.
And he was stonewalling LeBron James, making plays against rollers to the basket, secure. He just changes the profile of that team. I mean, you could make the case that he could close games at center for them before the end of the season when they go small. Because the Plumlee Nurkic experiment is definitely a little bit of an adventure. But I think that's got to be one of the most exciting draft pick kind of upside pieces that we've seen for a contender in a while with Ryan Dunn. Yeah. He's exciting.
Jonathan Mogbo is also one of my guys in the draft, and he's not quite to the level, but he's been playing minutes and looks like an NBA player. The last one I'll throw at you, and this is both a win and a loss. I was so high on Chet Holmgren's offense and off the dribble game, And I was like, there's something there and it's going to really flourish in the coming years. But this year, we probably only see layer one of that. Not the case. They lean into it. He's off the dribble game is unbelievable. It's probably where I thought it was going to be next year or the year after. And they're using it as a real weapon. And I just look at that and I go, this guy was so good last year, and his confidence in his own shot creation off the dribble is so high right now that they're a game changer. People, I see the chat keep saying the Celtics are a different level. I'm going to be early on this one, and I could be wrong. I think the Thunder are a little better than people think even, and people think they're really great, but I think they might actually be ready because of all the different talents that they have in their young guys and how those guys are all leveling up. Him, no more than him, though.
I would absolutely put Oklahoma City on Boston's tier. I'd
Yeah.
pick Boston because I just think they're
Right.
more experienced down the line. That's a lot of like Jalen Williams and Chet deciding big time possessions in an NBA Finals game, which would get a little sketchy for me. But
Totally.
I think that the OKC is the only team that can match Boston in their ability to put together multiple 5-man lineups where everybody can dribble, shoot, pass, and defend, which is like a unique thing that Boston can do and Oklahoma City can do. But Chet, a couple years ago when I saw he was working out all summer with Kevin Durant, I was like, uh-oh. like that's what he sees himself as. Like this could get a little scary.
A true hooper too, man. I mean, there's a lot of them. I think Boston, we were talking about Orlando, Oklahoma City. You can tell the teams that have most of the roster, at least, that just loves basketball, that wants to get better. And not every roster has that. I think people would be surprised at how rare that is in the NBA to have your like core guys. But all of those guys seem to just like eat, sleep, and breathe basketball. And Chet Holmgren definitely is in the top tier of that. Also in the top tier, Jason Timpf, man. This was a great show. This was a lot of fun. A really fun 2-man game while Legs was out. And I really appreciate you coming on, man.
I've been looking forward to this invite for a while. You're one of my favorite people to talk hoops with, and this is my favorite time of year because we're all making up our mind on all of these teams. It can get a little sloggy when you get into December and January, but this is the everyone's always like small sample. I'm like, our job is to be opinionated about the small sample. Like, what do you want us to do? Come on our shows and be like, none of this matters? Like, come on.
I know. And there are shows that do that, and I'm always like, guys, have a take here. It's okay, man.
Yeah,
Make sports
that's
so
the
fun.
job.
You can have a take. And you take a lot of L's in this job too.
Yeah,
of course. Check out his show, Hoops Tonight, on the Volume. It's a really great show. If you like this one, I promise you'll like that one. If you like that one, I promise you'll like this one. It was great to do a crossover, and I hope this is the first of several times we get the podcast together this season.
I hope so too, man. It was good to see you.
Everybody hit that like button, hit that subscribe button for us, and we'll be back tomorrow with Legs. He's going to be in Oklahoma City getting ready for the Wemby-Chet matchup. Woo! I can't wait for that one. So we'll preview that game as well as break down the action tonight in the association. Thanks, everybody. See you on the other side.
We all silly like the mayor.